and welcome to my little bookish corner of the internet. My name's Harriet. Today I'll be talking through 7 books that I would recommend if you're going on holiday. Obviously these are based off of my tastes, so don't take them too seriously. And also please let me know down below what books you would take on holiday, what you would recommend for me reading in the summertime. But yeah, let's just get into this. I'm going to start off by talking through some romance novels, contemporary as well. So the first one I'm going to talk about, I've mentioned so many times on my channel and I do have a review for it as well. I can't remember if I'm very proud of that review. I don't think that I got everything out that I wanted to, so I might redo it in the future. But it is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is a gorgeous book and actually the first that I read by Reid, and it's basically a character study and talking about this celebrity's life. It's almost as if it is a non-fiction novel, but it definitely is fiction. This person didn't exist, but as you are reading it, it feels like they genuinely did. So we are following the life of Evelyn Hugo, who was a Hollywood starlet, almost like a Marilyn Monroe kind of figure. And it's written like a biography, so it's someone jotting down all of these parts of Evelyn's life in an interview format and then turning it into a book. And we are almost reading that book. So not only do we follow the person who is doing the interviewing and talking to Evelyn, but obviously we are learning about Evelyn's life and all of these different trials and tribulations that she had to go through, all of the horrendous things that she had to suffer through. I will say there are a lot of content warnings for this. Please do look them up. I'm not going to say them all here. It's not the easiest book to read in the world, but it is so gripping and so heartbreaking and just the most emotional book I think I've ever read. It's one of my favourites of all time and I've only read it once. I do need to reread it this year. I'm planning a buddy read with someone so we can read that together. I think it's their first time reading it and my second. Super excited for that. I can't wait to get back into it. It was such a gorgeous book to read, and because it is almost like an interview biography format, I think that it is something that you just don't want to put down. You just constantly want to read it and learn more about this amazing character, and she's had such an incredible life, and just the way that Reid makes her feel so realistic and like she truly existed. It's just something I've never experienced from a book before. So yeah, definitely recommend this if you're sitting by the pool and you just want to read for a long period of time. You probably will not be able to put this one down. It is amazing. So the next book, I suppose I would call it a romance. It's more contemporary, I think. Again, kind of a character study, and I know some people really don't like this author's works, but I do think that their books are really good for the summertime as an easy read, and that is Conversations with Friends by Sally Rooney. This isn't my favourite book ever. I actually only gave it a 4-star rating, but I do think it's one of those books that keeps you entertained the whole time that you're reading it. It might not be your favourite thing ever. You might not even ever want to reread it, but it's just one of those books that I could not put down. Same as normal people, to be honest, but I do think that Conversations with Friends just resonated with me a little bit more. So we are following a young woman and she doesn't really know what she's doing with her life, and then she meets a married man and it's about their affair with each other and the different things that are happening with her friendships and her family, and it's just a really interesting character study. There is a lot of talk about being abroad and gorgeous settings, descriptions of these wonderful places that our main character is going to. Again, it's pretty dark. There are quite a few content warnings to do with like substance abuse and again a little bit of domestic violence too, so just keep that in mind. All of Sally Rooney's books are almost a dark character study, at least I've found with the 2 that I have read, but that makes them seem super realistic because they have their flaws. These characters aren't completely perfect people, they have issues that they are trying to deal with, and I just think that that is really interesting. So that is why I would definitely recommend this author's works, specifically this book, because I just preferred it of the 2. From there, we're going to move on to another book that I didn't really know what to place it in. It's almost a mystery thriller, but it's also got romance in there. And that is Where the Crawdad Sing by Delia Owens. Obviously very apt with the film adaptation coming out, so please let me know if you're going to watch it. I do think that I'm going to. But this book surprised me, definitely. The main reason why it's actually on this list is because there are so many gorgeous descriptions of the landscapes that our main character is in. We are following a girl from a very, very young age until she is in, I think, her early 20s, and following her life and all of these crazy experiences she's had to go through because her parents weren't there for her, and she lives in the marshes on her own, kind of isolated from the rest of society, and it's a study on how society treats her because of this, and also just her life and the things that she does with it, the people that she meets, the relationships that she forms. And there is a murder on the side of this as well. So a very interesting concept, something I've never read before. When I first started reading it, I didn't think that I was going to enjoy it. And then I got to about the halfway point and I just was completely hooked. I didn't know what to do other than read this book. Super gripping, really quite dark, plenty of content warnings. So again, please do look those up and make sure you're ready to read it. But I absolutely loved it. And I do think this is something that I would have loved to read again by the pool or on the beach. A little getaway in the woods. I think this would be a really good one to read. Lovely descriptions of nature and really interesting characters that again just feel super realistic. We're going to move on from that genre and go into fantasy. I've actually only put one book on this list because I feel like I talk about fantasy all the time and I don't want to bore you all. So I would recommend reading Stardust by Neil Gaiman. This is a super short story and something that is just incredibly whimsical, really funny, really humorous. I don't know if I would say that this is aimed at children, even though the Stardust film that came out you could probably watch when you're around about 8+. Yeah, I wouldn't recommend this book. There are some quite graphic scenes in here. I think there's one or two that I can remember quite vividly. But yeah, I wasn't expecting that when I was reading it. Anyway, this is a fantasy book following a young man called Tristan and what happens when he wants to go and get a fallen star for someone that he's fallen in love with that will not marry him without this fallen star as kind of a gift to her. She's a bit up herself, this girl, but Tristan is head over heels in love with her. And he goes on this adventure into the fairy realm and it is wonderful. I love this book so much. There is almost a political intrigue on the side following the royal family and something that's going on there within the fairy realm. And then obviously you've got Tristan who is going on this adventure to get this fallen star, which ends up being something that he doesn't expect it to be. It's just very easy to read and there's so much going on that, again, one of those books that I just couldn't put down. It really was so much fun and I would recommend it for people that maybe want to get into fantasy but don't want anything too long and don't really fancy getting into a series or anything like that. This would be a really nice one to start with. From fantasy, we will go on to science fiction. This book that I am mentioning is actually kind of a little bit of both. So that's why I've put it here. And that is The Lathe of Heaven by Ursula Le Guin. This is one of my favourite books by this author, actually. I think it is really creative. We are following a young man and everything that he dreams comes to be. And I have got a review for this, so I'll link that down below so I can talk a bit more about the synopsis. But again, quite a short book, something that is very gripping and really unique, such a unique premise that I've never read before. And it's also really fun, even though there are some pretty dark things going on. The realities that this person is dreaming up are quite intense and very, very strange. And we have got a really, really amazingly written antagonist as well. So it's kind of a heavy book, but also something that is really easy to read at the same time. I think it's probably the most accessible Le Guin book that I have ever read. I think it's actually easier to read than Ursi, and that was aimed at kids, whereas this one isn't. So if you're looking to get into Ursula Le Guin, I would recommend either trying this book or trying The Word for World is Forest, but that one is a little bit too short for me to take on holiday. I feel like it would be a little bit of a waste taking it with me. So that's why I'm recommending The Lathe of Heaven, and it's a very easy to read science fiction as well. It's not heavy in terms of the science aspect, it just has interesting concepts and I really loved it. From there, we're going to go on to a classic novel. It's been a while since I've read this book, but I do want to reread it and I'm probably going to reread it next summer. I know it seems like a really long way away, but that's just the time of year that I'd like to read it. And that is Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. Again, a character study following these sisters from a young age up until when they are older and the different things they go through in their lives, whether it is romance or their careers. So a very interesting character study. I do think this is quite an easy read and very entertaining because you're following various different sisters. So you get a lot of different perspectives and stories that you can follow. And there's romance in there, so it's got the light-hearted elements, but it has got some very emotional moments as well, which is something that I personally really like a mix of when I'm reading in the summertime. I just want something that's going to grip me and give me all of the feelings. And then the last book that I'm going to mention is actually a non-fiction novel. So when I'm on holiday, I do really like to read non-fiction. I just feel like I'm in the right mindset to learn about people and their lives and different things. But the one I'm going to recommend is The Salt Path by Raynor Winn. This is a true story following husband and wife who decide to walk the Salt Path, which is a really, really long walk. And they're living their life in tents and living out of cafes, trying to find water sources and places where they can wash. And it's just a very emotional but really, really beautifully written book. So amazing that they did this with their lives. I love a non-fiction that showcases someone's journey, and this is definitely that. I really, really loved reading it, and there is a second book which I have on my Kindle called The Wild Silence that I do want to read as well. That is set after the events that took place during the Salt Path. But if you want a book that really discusses nature and taking some time to just stop and look at the world around you, which I think we all need to do when we go on holiday and also just in general life. This definitely does that. It has some gorgeous descriptions of the coast. Obviously it is set in the UK, so if you're going abroad, the coastline might look a little bit different, but I do think it would still be something really lovely to read. And if you're feeling homesick, then you can read about the UK, which is quite sweet. Again, it is a really short book and very accessible, easy to read, but gives you all those wonderful feelings and makes you feel super connected to nature. So yeah, those are all of the books that I would recommend for a summer holiday. As I say, it's all subjective and down to the kind of things that you like, which is why I've put them into categories for you, so you can decide what sort of thing you want to take with you. And I do know that not all of these are particularly new novels, but I don't read a lot of new novels, so that's why they aren't on here. But some of them are quite hyped up, so I just want to let you know that they are worth the hype. Do let me know if you are going on holiday, where are you going and what kind of books are you planning to take with you. But that is everything from me today. Thank you so much for watching and I will see you in my next video. Bye.